morning, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Weather Wise. I'm meteorologist Liam Healy.
And I'm meteorologist Christine Gregory.
Coming up later tonight, we're tackling weird weather around the world in our Weather Wise topic of the week.
And does it really snow in Antarctica? Well, we'll have an answer in Weather Myths Debunked. Stay tuned.
Oh, Christine, it's been a week of crazy weather here in Oswego since last Wednesday, hasn't it?
It really has been. You know, just last week we saw temperatures in the 60s, even close to 70s. And just the other day, this past weekend, we saw our first snowflakes right here in Oswego.
We also saw some graupel. That was one of our old Twitter questions from our first show. Honestly, it's one of my favorite types of precipitation. I've never seen it anywhere here but Oswego, but I guess that might just be because I'm from downstate, maybe. I mean, do you ever take a type of precipitation, Christine?
Well, if I had to pick between rain and snow, it would definitely be snow. You know, I love the fact that every snowflake that falls is different from the other, and the fact that temperature and moisture conditions can vary the shape and the size of them is really amazing to me. I'm just not a huge fan of the cold temperatures that come along with them.
Oh, that's a shame. You can't get one without the other there. And do you have a favorite type of precipitation? Tweet it to us or respond to our Instagram story at WeatherWiseWTOP.
And speaking of Twitter, joining us on set tonight to answer your questions is meteorologist Walker Snowden.
Walker, what was on everyone's mind this week? Anything puzzling?
Well, let's find out. Let's see what my friend Ben had to say. He said, what are the conditions necessary to get freezing drizzle, and how does one forecast for it? First off, let's start talking about the difference between freezing drizzle and freezing rain. Freezing drizzle forms in the same way as freezing rain. However, freezing drizzle is just smaller water droplets. By definition, freezing drizzle is less than 0.5 millimeter in diameter, whereas freezing rain is anything larger. Freezing rain usually forms as snowflakes which fall through a warm layer which causes it to melt, and then re-enters a shallow cold layer at the surface and refreezes upon contact with the ground. Freezing drizzle, on the other hand, can form in temperatures below freezing. This is possible because the droplets of supercooled water are so incredibly small they remain liquid in temperatures below freezing. And as you can see on the graph, the actual freezing rain will actually be above the freezing line, and below the freezing line you can actually have the freezing drizzle. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Walker.
Now, in a new segment we have this week, we're talking about weather news and headlines. And this week, we're starting out right here at home.
Last week, a powerful windstorm rushed through western and central New York, causing damage from Buffalo all the way to Plattsburgh. There were 30-plus reports from across the region of downed trees, damaged power lines, and pieces of roofs ripped off, with one of those reports stating Public Works Office had more than 130 calls related to downed trees alone.
But those reports aren't where the story ends. Over in Niagara Falls, this windstorm forced an event that many thought they would never live to see. Sherman Zavitz from WIVB tells us what exactly moved on the Niagara River.
It happened last week on Halloween night. A combination of high water levels and strong winds dislodged this decaying 80-foot iron barge, allowing it to turn and float another 50 yards downstream before becoming lodged again, about a quarter mile from the brink of the Horseshoe Falls.
I remember coming up here in the 60s with my parents, driving up from Fort Erie and looking at, we called it the barge. And I was thinking as a young boy, I said, geez, I want to be around here when the barge either lets loose, goes over the falls, or whatever, whatever happens. I was just interested to see.
So Kevin Pavaromo came today from Buffalo to see its new position. But how it got here in the first place is fascinating.
It's always been a nice story to tell because of the happy ending.
In 1918, it was being used as a platform to carry sand upstream, but broke free from a tugboat one day.
On board were two men who must have been paralyzed with fear, knowing exactly what was ahead of them. But they did have presence of mind enough to open the dumping doors on the bottom of the scow that flooded the scow's compartments, caused it to slow down and gradually ground on the rocks.
From the top of that former Toronto hydro generating station, rescuers used a cannon to fire a rescue line out across the rapids to reach the two men who were still stranded out on that barge. These are photos of that rescue 101 years ago in Sherman Zavitz's book titled It Happened at Niagara.
Today, of course, such a rescue would be achieved easily and quickly. You bring in a helicopter,
When and where it goes from here is anyone's guess.
We're monitoring it. Our police are monitoring it. If there's a safety issue, and even if it could go over, it probably wasn't going to go far.
Coming up after the break, Christine will be breaking down your international to local weather highlights.
Don't go anywhere. Weather-wise, we'll be right back in just a minute.
Welcome back to WeatherWise. Meteorologist Christine Greger is on the weather wall with this week's weather highlights. What's going on this week in weather, Christine?
Well, we actually have quite a few of world weather highlights to talk about this week. We have 3 tropical systems going on across the eastern hemisphere that's going on. I know it's winter-like conditions over here, but over there they're experiencing tropical systems. We have a polar plunge that's going on locally here in the United States that we're going to talk about, bringing temperatures way down into the 30s. And we also have our first accumulating snow that we will see this week. So first, we're going to start with these 3 tropical systems. You can see across the eastern hemisphere, here's one, and another is actually to the west of India, and then the other one is to my left. So first, we're going to start with Category 4 Hurricane Hailong. This storm is moving north-northeast at around 8 miles per hour, and in the western Pacific Ocean with winds 140 miles per hour. As far as tracking the storm system, you can see by tomorrow around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the storm will weaken just a little bit, around 115 miles per hour, and will continue to circle northeastward. And this storm is going to continue to trek across the Pacific Ocean. So people are not going to feel the impacts from this storm. Our second system, we have Tropical System Nakri. This system is moving east at 3 miles per hour, and this is centered in the South China Sea. Now, as far as tracking this storm goes, by Friday around 5 o'clock in the morning Central Standard Time, this storm will be around 65 miles per hour and heading westward. And as you can see, the people that are living in Vietnam will be experiencing the effects of the storm, but by the time it reaches them, it will be much weaker, around 70 miles per hour. So now we're backing up to the western India. We have a tropical depression. So this storm system is even weaker than the one I mentioned before. This is tropical system Maha, and right now it's merely just a low pressure system, and by Thursday at 11 a.m. it'll be merely 30 miles per hour. So again, a very weak system. Not really need to worry about that system at all. So let's take it back to national. We have quite a bit going on across the United States. We have areas across the Great Lakes experiencing snow, while down to the south we're experiencing some severe weather. So let's take you down to Texas, and actually just west of Texas, where we have a lot of severe storms and rain going on. You can see we have a winter weather advisory in New Mexico for the cities of Edgewood, Las Vegas, Santa Rosa. So this is in effect, it was in effect starting Thursday by noon Mountain Standard Time until about 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And along with that, you can see we have some severe weather going on across northern Texas and Oklahoma. We have flash flood watches out and aerial watches out as well. So quite a contrast into what's happening in New Mexico. And now taking it back up north, you can see we have a high pressure around the area right here. So not all that really going on, but this area did experience quite a bit of rainfall. So a lot of these rivers out in the Dakotas do have flood warnings in effect until Saturday Central Standard Time. Again, across the Iowa area, we also have a flood warning. That's going to be in effect until Saturday morning Central Standard Time. So taking you a little bit closer to home, you can see this is the storm that everybody's talking about. We have a low pressure system off the Great Lakes. We have warmer air just to our south, but overnight tonight we are going to be seeing temperatures drop quite a bit. And the effects out the Great Lakes, there's already lakeshore flood advisories out for Michigan. So as you can see, we have temperatures across the nation, 30s for the northern plains, and just down to the south. Just look at that contrast. We're seeing 72 degrees down in Dallas. But as we head into the rest of the end of your week, just take a look at how these cold temperatures plunge into the Texas area. Even see they went from 70 degrees all the way down into the 40s, and that just continues all the way into your Friday morning. So for us here, we're also seeing temperatures pretty chilly. We're in the upper 30s and low 40s in some spots, and that storm that everyone's talking about as we head into your Thursday morning, that is when we're going to start to see the first effects of the storm as that low treks across the state. We have rain showers mixing into snow showers by Thursday afternoon. Temperatures will be well into the 30s around central New York. And we will time more about the snow showers that will go into effect starting tomorrow into Friday. And we will have more coming up with our WeatherWise topic of the week coming up right after the break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to WeatherWise. Let's jump right into this week's WeatherWise topic.
This week, we're taking you around the globe and investigating a few different places with some unusual weather.
Christine and I both chose 2 places where we thought the weirdest weather in the world happens.
So, Liam, where around the world are you taking us first?
Well, our first stop is Relampago de Catatumbo, or Catatumbo lightning in English. It's a phenomenon that occurs over Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, where lightning can occur up to 280 times an hour. Now, this isn't an everyday occurrence, but it is by no means infrequent, happening on average 140 to 160 days a year. This lake has puzzled people for hundreds of years, including Italian geographer Agostino Cozazzi, who said this of the phenomenon, quote, like a continuous lightning, and is positioned such that located almost on the meridian of the mouth of the lake, it directs the navigators as a lighthouse, end quote. This has inspired one of the more popular nicknames of the phenomena, the Lighthouse of Maracaibo. But you're probably sitting there and thinking, what exactly causes these extreme lightning events to occur? It's been debated by scientists for years since its discovery. One of the prominent theories included the geography of the region and the fact that there is ample sources of moisture in the area, between Lake Maracaibo and the swampy plains that surround the area. Moist air is wicked off of these sources and reaches 3 different mountain ranges, which helps to force the air to rise and destabilize, while the plains help to initiate an electrical difference between the ground and the atmosphere above, leading to these extended length thunderstorms, sometimes lasting up to 9 hours.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. So Christine, where are you taking us today?
Well, now we're taking you to Australia, specifically to the Gulf of Carpentaria, where a very rare yet stunning meteorological phenomenon occurs, known as morning glory clouds.
That sounds like pretty majestic just by their name.
Well, they really do, Liam. So these clouds are still not entirely understood, but what exactly are they? So they're a series of narrow tubes of clouds that can be up to 600 miles long. It's believed that these clouds form as a result of a converging sea breeze during the daytime. This creates this line of convection in clouds. During the nighttime, the air cools and descends as it meets an inversion of warmer air. This difference in air temperature and density, both above and below the air, creates a simultaneous rising and sinking motion on either side of the line of clouds and creates these rolling cylinders that seem to just roll off the peninsula. And these clouds have also been observed at several other locations around the world, such as the English Channel, the central United States, eastern Russia, Canada, Mexico, and even the Gulf Coast of California. Now, what's really neat about these clouds is that they form near Australia's Gulf of Carpentaria, and they can be accurately predicted in advance and occur the most frequently. And they're also actually sought after by hang gliders.
That would be the one time you could probably convince me to get into a hang glider to see some really cool clouds.
Maybe.
So now let's take things to Europe. The Mediterranean Sea, while beautiful, is home to a destructive weather phenomena. This event is a lot rarer than my first choice is, happening usually only every 1 to 2 years. It's called a Medicane informally. Now this is a show about science, so obviously we have to tell you the scientific name, which is Mediterranean tropical like cyclones. These have the potential to reach up to a Category 1 strength, which you remember from our first WeatherWise topic is 65 miles per hour or greater. Sustained winds. Now let's get into a little history about these storms. They are only identified as we know them today during the onset of satellite meteorology, where it was first seen that they take on the characteristic eye that is often associated with a tropical cyclone. Since then, nearly 70 of these storms have been identified via satellite and weather observations. Just to note, these are only the storms that have been determined to reach tropical storm intensity, or winds of 34 miles per hour or greater. The most common times of the year for these to form is September and January. Well, that may sound odd because that's early fall into early winter for the region, but this phenomenon relies on cold air diving into the Mediterranean region, inducing a type of instability known as baroclinicity. This type of instability relies on strong temperature and pressure gradients across an area. Something very present when a trough is moving through the area. I would need an entire show to get down into the details about how this all comes together. Fortunately, we just don't have the time, but it is one of my favorite weather phenomena across the world. So Christine, let's get into your second choice for our weird weather spots.
All right, well, have any of you ever heard of a fire tornado, otherwise known as a fire whirl or a twister? Now, these fire vortexes do exist and occur mostly in California, but have also been seen in Australia too, where wildfires tend to occur most frequently. But they actually do not form as a result of rotation during a thunderstorm like the name implies. They're actually made up of flame or ash, beginning with a single swirl of smoke or wind. And their spinning nature ultimately comes from the extreme temperature differences in the air. This causes the surface winds to rapidly rise and rotate. And when you have very turbulent wind conditions combining with such a large amount of heat from the fires, it creates a rotating eddy of air, as we call it. Now, this eddy expands to create a vortex or tornado-like shape that takes in highly flammable and combustible gases while burning debris are in motion. Now, Liam, I know you love your fun facts, so I have one for you.
Facts.
So the cores of these vortexes can reach a temperature of around 1,090 degrees Celsius. So it gets pretty hot inside those things. Also, wildfires can create numerous types of fire whirls that can vary in duration, size, and intensity. Sometimes these whirling winds can spin at around 99 miles per hour and extend as high as several thousands of feet into the air, and also last over 20 minutes long. Some examples of these include numerous fire tornadoes that developed after a lightning struck an oil storage facility in April of 1926 in San Luis Obispo, California. This caused the death of 2 people as well as a lot of structural damage. So the firestorm burned over 5 days and produced more than 1 fire tornado. So these tornadoes mean business when they happen.
It seems that they really do. Well, coming up after the break, we're going to come back with your weather myth of the week debunked. We're talking all about Antarctica. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to WeatherWise for our last discussion, Weather Myths Debunked.
Joining us once again is Walker Snowden.
Now today we're talking all things about Antarctica.
Now, this week we're investigating the question, does it really snow in Antarctica? Many believe that it does simply because, well, it's Antarctica. It's covered in snow and ice. It had to get there somehow.
But is that really the case?
No, it really isn't the case, Christine. Walker, I think you have some insight on this topic here for us.
Yes, Liam. It actually has to do with why people think snow is already there. As air gets colder, it can hold less and less water vapor. Going in the opposite direction of warmer air is the more water vapor it can hold. Now, obviously, Antarctica falls into the first category as temperatures rarely make it past 38 degrees Fahrenheit during the warm season and drop to nearly 30 below during the winter months. That is just at McMurdo Station on the coast. Other areas inland can drop to 70 below or more. This dangerously cold air usually stops most weather systems from dropping much precipitation because there simply isn't enough water vapor to form it. Most of what you see has been there for thousands of years, just blowing around. Sometimes it even eroded from the ice as the winds whip over them.
So that's some pretty interesting stuff there. I mean, it's crazy. Like, that snow is that old? Because, I mean, is it really going to melt when you get down to 30 below during that time? But, you know, Christine, I think you said you enjoyed Antarctica before.
I really do. I find it fascinating. But also, did you know that you could take cruises there? I did not know that, and I think that's really neat. Maybe I'll do that sometime.
We should all go. Me and all the crew, we're going on a cruise to Antarctica. I think it'd be a really cool experience, but definitely want to go during the summer months, though. Those 30 below temperatures really aren't doing it for me. But it's brutal. You know, there's some of the worst winters in the country, or the world, I'd say, even worse than the Arctic. So so why is that, Walker? Do you know? Can you give us some insight there?
Yeah, I got a little bit of information. But yeah, part of the reason for that is that Antarctica as a whole is one large landmass, while in the Arctic it tends to be more broken up and they are also more moderate, slightly by the ocean. Antarctica does not benefit from the moderation of the ocean due to its sheer size. Some part of Antarctica hundreds of miles from the coast. Most of it is also at high elevations, only make it easier for the air to stay cold and stay that way.
And since it's located in the southern hemisphere, their summer is during October through February, when we usually experience winter in the northern hemisphere. So if you're looking to escape those wintertime blues, maybe this cruise isn't really for you. Just because our winter is their summer doesn't mean it's going to be warm. Temperatures will still barely make it into the 30s during the summertime down there. And coming up after the break, we have our final weather check with meteorologist Walker Snowden once again, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to WeatherWise. Let's get one last update on the weather with meteorologist Walker Snowden. Walker, what are we seeing out there right now?
Thanks, guys. We're actually seeing a little bit of precipitation over towards the Buffalo area. Actually, for our actual radar that's actually near Oswego, it's actually down currently for a maintenance and actually an upgrade, so we'll be looking forward to that coming very soon. As for our current temperatures, we are 41 here in Oswego. A little bit colder, more inland away from the lake, but about what we can expect for current temperatures. Not too off of what we can typically expect. As for the entire region of New York, we are about the same. Temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s, and it's going to stay like that and possibly even get a little bit colder, as we're going to see right now. As for our radar and satellite for Futurecast, it's around 31 here in Syracuse at around 12 a.m. Friday, and we're going to see a little bit of snow over Friday night heading into the weekend. And as we continue, as for Friday at 8 a.m., it's going to be around 28 degrees in Fulton, and as we continue into Friday evening, around 31 here in Rochester, we're going to see the precipitation move out of the area. We're going to see a little bit more cloud cover coming in as we go in from Friday into Saturday morning, and that's where we're actually going to see our coldest temperatures coming as well. Temperatures coming down to 25 degrees here in Fulton, and it'll be very similar as we head into Oswego. And furthermore, as for Friday during our whiteout game, it's a big game, hockey, we're going to possibly see snow, a high of around 34 degrees, winds northwest 8 to 10 miles an hour. And that's all I have for now. I'm Storm Team 10 meteorologist Walker Stone. Back to you guys.
Well, Liam, are you ready for the snow?
I'm ready for the snow, but I'm also ready for the other big whiteout thing. Whiteout weekend is this weekend here in Oswego. Those temperatures look pretty chilly. Definitely could see the potential that maybe it could be a real whiteout for once.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty exciting. Walker, are you excited for whiteout?
I am excited for whiteout. It's been a long time since I've actually been to a hockey game, so I'm pretty excited.
Oh, really?
For that. Yeah.
Wow.
Man, I was first online 2 years in a row, and I don't know. Who do you guys think? Do you think we can take on Plattsburgh 2 years in a row for the big W?
I think we can.
Absolutely.
Now we got to wrap up. So thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you again next week, where we'll continue to make you weather-wise.
Have a great night.